If you're like most of us, you probably wait until things look or feel perfect before you let people see them, like something that you're going to teach or something you're going to promote. And I have a funny story about the other day when I did something very unpolished. I mean, it was like rough edges. And I was surprised at how inviting it turned out to be for the person that I was talking to. And then I shared this with a group and I got the same response. So here's what happened. I started a new Bible study at my house, and it's called a Discovery Bible Study. It's something brand new that I'm trying. It's something that's been around for a long time in the world, but it's a new approach for me. And so I wanted to invite some neighbors to this Discovery Bible Study. In my head, I had this fantasy that I invited all my neighbors to come to this Discovery Bible Study, and they all showed up to my house. And, we were all sitting around the living room. In reality, what happened was we leaked it to our church, and thankfully, a whole bunch of those people signed up and showed up to our house. And it's fun because everybody's in a different place in their spiritual journey. Some people very, very beginning, so it was perfect. But I did not invite all my neighbors. I only invited one neighbor, and here's what happened. I just had this on my list for weeks. It feels like, to go talk to my neighbors, a couple of them in specific, and one of them very, very specifically. So what I did was I wrote it down this final day that I needed to go invite my neighbor to this Discovery Bible study that was going to be starting at my house the following week. And I didn't have anything printed. So what I decided to do was to take a 3x5 card and just write like a blank, no lines 3x5 card, and just write with a regular pen, Bible study at Gabe and Melissa's house Wednesday at 7 p.m. And I felt like a total dork, but I was like, well, I gotta have something to put in this person's hand in order to, remind them, and also just so that it kind of is a focal point for the conversation. So I write this out and I take it over and I hand it to my neighbor. And it was a good response, actually it was a really great conversation because I found out that my neighbor had all these God moments that had come into their life, and so this was just like another one, and they were telling me like, this must be crazy because listen to all this. Found out that that person is connected to another person that's actually part of our church, and anyways, this whole thing started unfolding. So it was very cool that in the moment when I felt like I wasn't prepared, I didn't have what I needed and all this stuff, that I just wrote out on this 3x5 card the thing, and that was the tool that I was able to walk over across the street with and just invite my neighbor. And so I was sharing this with a group of pastors that I got to be with this week. And one of them said, in response to the kind of training thing we were doing, said, thank you for sharing that because, it makes me feel better about the fact that I don't feel like I often have all the tools that I need, but I can't let that be an excuse, to not follow through and not to take the action to move into the place that God wants me to be. And so I just wanted to tell you today, as you're thinking about this week and what's coming forward for you. Now, maybe you're a leader in a church and you're starting to think about Easter and you're starting to look at resources and go like, wow, we don't have what we need. I want to assure you, you do. Even if it's a 3x5 card, that you do not need fancy in order to obey. You do not need fancy to be effective. And sometimes it's the magic of the rough edges that actually works. It humanizes things and personalizes things. So I want to encourage you to ask yourself the question, what is in your hand? That's actually the question that God asked Moses in the very beginning of the Bible. You see this thing in Exodus, and God asked Moses, what's in your hand? And that, I think, is a lot of times the question that God has for you and me. He's not interested in what you don't have. He's interested in what you do have. So do you have a 3x5 card and a pen? That might be enough for you right now in your ministry, in your mission, in your movement making. You might just need what's in your hand, and God can use that. I want to encourage you in this sense to kind of lower the pressure on yourself. Give yourself a break. You do have what it takes. You do have what you need. Use that and expect God to work through it. Have a great week.